Hey YouTube,
What's up?
nice popping of the P there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the style of this video might be a little bit different than our normal Tubius videos. Part of the reason for that is because we've been trying to make this video for literally years now. We've had several different attempts, but it's just been a very difficult conversation to have, a different topic to bring up, but we feel like now is the appropriate time. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, so we want to share with you our experiences with our mental health.
Mental health is definitely a touchy subject. It's something that's kind of not really talked about a lot. At the end of this video, we're also going to share with you a cool resource for those of you who need help dealing with your mental health issues. That resource is called BetterHelp. It's an online counseling platform. There's a link for it below, but we'll also share with you how to navigate that platform later on.
We're going to try a different format with this video. We're each going to tell our own personal experiences with our mental health issues. There'll be a bit of back and forth going, but hopefully you guys will understand each of our narratives. And then we're going to come back together and talk about how we deal with mental health in a relationship.
So join us back at the end of this for a little bit of a conversation about how we deal with it together.
I'm just going to get right into it because if I put it off any longer, I probably won't be able to talk about this. For me, I've experienced this weird dichotomy of feeling like I've been dealing with mental illness for a brief time, but also for a very long time. I say a brief time because it was only in the last year that I was officially diagnosed with 2 mental illnesses, but at the same time, I've been dealing with these mental illnesses for pretty much my entire life. They were just undiagnosed.
For a lot of people, mental illness is something that's sort of been in their veins for the course of their life. For me, there was more of an onset. I was always a pretty happy-go-lucky, carefree kid. I had that feeling like I was invincible.
It stems all the way back to my childhood. When I was in elementary school, I was severely bullied. And I think I'm realizing now that not only was the targeted bullying based on these idiosyncrasies where I didn't fit in with the normal boy stereotypes, but I think that there was also this sense that people could pick up on of my own queerness. And even at that age when I hadn't figured it out on my own, and I wouldn't for many years, there was something different about me. And it probably stuck out like a sore thumb, and as a result I became the #1 target for a lot of kids. And kids can be mean and kids can be cruel and they can have a devastating impact on your life.
I've been struggling with anxiety for the past 8 years, and that all kind of started when I was studying abroad in London with John. There was one night when we went out late with friends to a club. We were having a really good time. On the way back, we were on a bus to go back to our home. John and I were sitting together. His head was resting on my shoulder, and these 2 teenagers behind us started flicking the back of my head, just like harassing us.
I remember when I was in college, around my sophomore year, that was around the first time that I started to really feel sad. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I don't know if this is normal, but I just don't feel great most of the time. I should probably talk to someone about it. But then I got busy, I had a lot of projects and lots of schoolwork, and I got distracted, and I didn't end up really seeking out a counselor until my senior year, 2 years later. And the counselor was helpful to some degree. It was nice to have someone to talk to, but we didn't have enough time to really delve into the issues at hand.
To me, it was so obvious that they were uncomfortable with, it wasn't even like a grotesque level of PDA. We weren't like making out on the bus, but just being there together, I guess they had an issue with it. So it felt very targeted, and they kept hitting the back of my head. At one point on the bus ride, I turned around and looked right into the eyes of the person who was harassing me, and he just looked back at me and locked eyes, and he made it so clear he was ready to fight me.
And then I moved to New York. Things were okay because there was a lot of new things going on and it was exciting, and Jared was here with me, so I was doing okay. And then something really traumatizing happened in my life. It's so strange that I go, days or weeks or months without thinking about this, and then as soon as I bring it to the forefront, I start to get really emotional, but I guess that's normal. In 2013, one of my close friends from high school was murdered. She was a high school teacher, and I don't want to go into too many details, but it was a pretty gruesome story, and when that happened, my world kind of stopped. But I had never experienced such traumatic grief in my life, to the point where I felt like I couldn't get out of bed a lot of days, and it was really tough to just go through my day-to-day responsibilities. I just started a new job, and that was really difficult to try to present myself in a way where I didn't seem like I was like dying inside. So at that point I sought out another therapist, and we really focused on this particular incident because that was all I could really focus on for, probably at least 6 months. And she kind of helped me out of that hole to the point where I felt like I was back to normal, quote unquote. But again, there were so many layers just with this particular trauma that by the time we finally had gotten me to a place where I felt comfortable to, smile again, we didn't have a chance to delve into anything else. Also, my insurance ran out, so at that point I didn't have really any options at my immediate disposal.
Instincts kicked in for me and I stood up. I was ready to go, and all of a sudden my friends came between us and kind of put their hands up and was like, okay, like this isn't gonna happen. So we decided to get off at the next stop, but we were followed and we were confronted by these kids. And in that moment I felt like I was going to die. I think if I hadn't had my friends there that night, I don't know what would have happened, honestly. One way or another, I don't really remember the event that well, but they ended up leaving us alone. But there's no question that I was a different person after that.
So at that point, I stopped seeing my therapist and I went for another couple of years without seeing one. This was basically around the time that we actually started the YouTube channel. There were periods of time where I just felt so sad and so low and lethargic and incapable, just so defeated in so many ways. But I kind of brushed it off as just everyone has these trials and everyone feels sad once in a while, like this is normal. So I kind of lived my life at this low level of depression without realizing that that's what I was actually experiencing. And it wasn't until last year, after I went through another pretty traumatizing experience with my whole health scare with my tonsils, where I was in and out of the hospital for 3 or 4 months. There was a point where I actually almost died, and a lot of that really was very eye-opening for me because I was at the point where I just felt like I was going to give up. And I know that sounds really drastic, and I don't mean to say that I was suicidal, but I was just so exhausted physically and mentally from both this physical illness of my tonsils and this undiagnosed mental illness that I was just dealing with every single day. So drained and trying to put on a brave face, but it wasn't working.
All of a sudden, I was really paranoid. I thought everywhere that people were watching me and judging me, and that instance has been one of the biggest reasons that I'm not super comfortable with PDA. I'm not super comfortable holding John's hand in public, which is something I really want to be okay with.
It definitely had an impact on my relationship with Jared because we were going through a tough time, and I feel like we couldn't really communicate very well because I just didn't know what was going on in my head anymore. But at the same time, I was just always in my head, and it felt like I was trapped, and all I could focus on was this sense of self-loathing and self-hatred and guilt and shame and feeling like a terrible person all the time because I felt bad. Like I felt like I was a bad person for feeling sad or for feeling bad.
It kind of sucks because it's also morphed from concern of physical safety into one of just well-being in general. I developed hypochondriasis. I developed a lot of anxiety just about things that shouldn't be a concern, but all of a sudden I was really anxious about just everyday mundane things. I developed catastrophic thinking, kind of imagining the worst case scenario for everything, which made me really afraid to do anything. A lot of times I just wanted to curl up and forget the world because I didn't feel safe out there.
So around the time that I was recovered from the physical illness of my tonsils, I got this phone call, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that it changed my life and maybe even saved my life. It was a phone call from this new therapist, someone that I had applied for almost 6 months prior. Because of the system, it took them that long to get to my account. Finally, this therapist reached out to me and she was like, "Hi, I see you wanted to set up an appointment. I'm an LGBTQ specialized therapist. Would you like to set up a meeting?" So I set up an appointment and I met with her, and after 2 sessions, she diagnosed me with 2 mental illnesses. She diagnosed me with persistent depressive disorder, and she diagnosed me with complex PTSD. So these were things that I had been dealing with pretty much my entire life, or at least my entire adult life, and I had no idea. So that was a very sobering moment because I was like, holy shit, this is real. No more excuses. I need to get help.
And this mental illness had real consequences. When we got back home from studying abroad, I had a really awful year. My anxiety gave way to depression. A lot of people think you're just sad, but really it's more of just this kind of gray fog. I wouldn't feel, happy about the things that I used to feel happy about, and I wouldn't feel motivated. I didn't have energy. I kind of just stopped caring. Things just felt very bland and uninteresting, and I had very little drive to do anything. I remember that I would spend most of my days just at home, not even doing anything. I would sleep for 10 or 11 hours a night mainly because I just didn't want to be awake. I didn't have anxiety in my dreams, and as soon as I woke up, it hit me, and I would realize like, oh wait, this is still something I'm dealing with. I never felt for a single moment of any day that I was actually like a healthy and happy human.
But one thing that my therapist reiterated for me was the concept of comparing my mental illnesses with my past physical illnesses. And she said, when you had this tonsil scare, you didn't tell yourself, oh, just suck it up, or oh, be a man, grow up, grow some balls. You had this physical illness and you went to a doctor or many doctors to get it treated. What's the difference between having an illness in your throat versus having an illness in your brain? It's an organ in your body, just like your kidney or your liver or your stomach or your heart, but there should be no difference. And that really resonated with me, and I think that's why I'm so open to talking about this, because I realized that before she told me that, I had that mindset of thinking, oh, you know, mental illness, or I'm feeling sad or depressed or whatever, just suck it up, you'll be fine. If I'd had that mindset about my tonsils, there's a good chance I would not be sitting here right now relaying this story to you. And she helped me change my life.
And more than anything, I wanted to get back to how I felt before. More than anything, I just wanted to put this behind me, and I was willing to try anything. If someone told me, you have to give up chocolate and you will never feel this way again, I would have done it in a heartbeat. And I did try things. I tried changing my diet. I tried doing acupuncture. I tried exercising more. I tried taking probiotics. I went to therapy and I sought help and I talked about my problems, and everything helped a little bit, but none of them actually were able to address the issue at hand and get me back to where I was before.
But it's not easy, and even discussing it with Jer, there's a lot of miscommunication, because sometimes it's really hard to articulate what's going on in here. When you try to bring it from here to here, out to here, a lot gets lost in translation.
I saw a counselor specializing in cognitive behavioral therapy, and together we were able to address a lot of the issues that I was having, a lot of the catastrophic thinking. I was able to reframe a lot of the thoughts in my mind so that they weren't quite so devastating for me, and I was able to sort of look at my life and my mental health under a microscope and be excited about starting my day again and going on adventures.
And that's why I really want to make this video. That's why we want to make this video, because we both believe there should not be a stigma about getting help for mental illness. And if our stories can help even just one of you to consider seeking help for yourself, I think that we've done our job.
A lot of this has been also with the help of John. It's a combination of his help and the help of my therapist that I've able to come to a point where I can exist and function. Yes, I do still have anxiety. Yes, it is difficult to deal with, and I deal with it on a daily basis, but I'm also able to live my life. And it's just something that I wish a lot of people knew, that you didn't have to go through alone. I think mental health is stigmatized a lot in our society. These issues are real and they affect so many people.
This isn't the end of this story. It's really just the beginning for me. I've been dealing with mental illness almost my entire life, but I've only been treating it for the last 6 months. And it's going to be many years before I get to a place where I feel normal, if that ever even happens. But what I can say is that I do feel better, and I can see the world how it really is, and not through this distorted point of view, which was my reality for most of my life. It's because of the help of professionals like my therapist that I'm at this place now.
Seeking help for me was the number one thing in helping me get back to where I am today, where I can function and be happy. I still have a long way to go. I'm still seeing a counselor, but I have hope and a promise for what lies ahead.
So I have a positive outlook on the future, and I'm going to continue working hard. I think that things are going to get better for me, and I think that I have a really supportive partner in Jer, and I think that together we're going to work through these battles and get to a place where we're both truly happy. I really believe that, and I hope that you guys also believe that for yourselves. I love you.
So after sharing a little bit about how we've each dealt with mental illness, we wanted to come together and talk about how we deal with it as a couple.
I think the most important thing, and this is something that should probably go without saying, is that in our darkest moments, we've always been there for each other and support each other. And I think that we're really lucky to have each other in our lives and to be cognizant of that. I think because we both had to deal with mental illness for so many years, we recognize when it's necessary to put our own shit aside for the other person.
And if there's any silver lining to us both having issues with mental illness, is that we can recognize that. I think it might be a little more difficult for couples where one person struggles with mental illness and the other person can't relate. But I know when I hear you talking about an instance that you felt depressed, I can relate to it, and I sort of know a little bit what you're going through. I think a lot of people just imagine that means like you were really sad that day. That's not what it is at all. I can relate to it and I can understand it and I can step up to deal with it in that way.
I think that works the same for me too. I've never been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, but I have a family history of it, and I do have some levels of anxiety. So I definitely can recognize when you're in those moments and not just kind of brush them off as like, oh, you're feeling anxious, because it's different. It's not the same as feeling anxious the way maybe the average person would feel anxious about taking a test or going to a job interview or something like that. It's a whole other level. So I can recognize it in you, and I step up in the same way. When you need me, I'm there for you.
I think that's the most important part of it, is just knowing that we're a team, and it's great if we're both here, but sometimes the scales tip a little bit, and it's important that we maintain that sense of equilibrium to kind of match the other person and get back on that same level.
I think another great aspect of our relationship is that we don't hold any sort of stigma when it comes to getting mental health help. We both have gotten help from a number of different therapists over the years, and we recognize that while we can be there for each other, sometimes it goes beyond that and you need professional help.
It's great if you can find that resource in person. For some people, that opportunity doesn't exist, or it doesn't fit into their schedule, or it's not covered by insurance. We mentioned earlier, but BetterHelp is really an incredible resource. There are thousands of licensed counselors on BetterHelp that are ready 24/7 to talk to you. Traditional counseling is like you pay a flat fee for a one-time session. In BetterHelp, you pay a subscription fee, but then you get unlimited access.
It's very convenient depending on your schedule, because you can either talk to a counselor via phone call, you can do it through live chat, through texting, or you can actually have an interpersonal Skype conversation. So depending on your level of comfort, whether or not you want them to hear your voice or see your face, or if texting is as far as you want to go, there are different levels of integration, and I think that's one of the best aspects of BetterHelp.
Especially because a lot of people have anxiety about getting out of their house and going to see a counselor, so this gives people like that an option. I filled out the questionnaire and I was paired with a counselor within an hour, which is incredible to think you can go from not having help to having help in like such a quick amount of time. So we think it's a great resource, and we highly recommend that you check it out if you feel like you need to talk to someone, because let's be honest, we all do sometimes.
So we wanted to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. There's a link in our description below, so if any of you guys are interested or feel like you're in a place where you need some help, check that link out and you will be able to find a counselor and hopefully get on the path to better mental health.
So thank you so much for tuning into this video. It wasn't the easiest to make. I don't know how easy it was to watch either, if any of this resonates with you. If you have any questions about mental health, you can definitely leave a comment below and we'll do our best to address it.
We also think that these types of videos are super important, especially because mental health is something that affects our daily lives. So if you want to hear more about our experiences with mental health, let us know in the comments below. We'd be interested in potentially making more videos or maybe even a series. We want to know if this is helpful for you guys.
So thanks for watching. I'm Beep.
I am Beep.
We are two Beeps.
Peacing out.
Beeps out.
Beeps out. I love you.
I'm Beep.